She's lying. I'm so damn tired of her lies.
The bathroom door clicked shut at 2:47 a.m., and that's when I knew my marriage was over. I'd been lying there for 3 hours, staring at the ceiling fan that squeaked every fourth rotation, listening to Rachel toss and turn beside me. When her phone buzzed for the 5th time, she finally gave up pretending to sleep. "I'll be right back," she whispered, grabbing her phone and tiptoeing toward the bathroom. Eddie Harlan, that's me. 42 years old, hands permanently stained with motor oil, back aching from 15 years of crawling under cars in my garage. I fix things for a living: engines, transmissions, broken down dreams of people who can't afford new cars. But I couldn't fix whatever was broken between Rachel and me. Through the thin walls of our split-level house, I heard her giggling. Actually giggling. Like she was 17 again instead of 38, and married to a man who worked 60-hour weeks to keep us afloat. "Stop it, you're terrible," she whispered into the phone, followed by more soft laughter. My stomach twisted into knots. Rachel hadn't laughed like that with me in months. Hell, she barely looked at me anymore, just grunted responses when I asked about her day at the insurance office where she worked as an HR manager. The toilet flushed, her cover story, and she crept back to bed, sliding under the covers like nothing had happened. "Everything okay?" I asked quietly. "Fine, just couldn't sleep." Liar. The next morning, Rachel rushed around getting ready for work, distracted and jumpy. She left her coffee half-finished and her purse sitting on the kitchen counter while she went upstairs to grab something. I stared at that purse for a long moment. In 15 years of marriage, I'd never violated her privacy, never read her texts, never checked her emails, never even opened her mail. But desperation makes you do stupid things. My hands shook as I unzipped the main compartment. Inside was the usual mess: receipts, lip gloss, breath mints, her wallet. But tucked in my toolbox in the garage was something I'd bought months ago during a particularly bad patch. A tiny voice recorder, no bigger than a thumb drive. "Eddie, have you seen my—" Rachel's voice carried down the stairs. I slipped the recorder into the side pocket of her purse and zipped it shut, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Found it!" she called out, bouncing down the stairs with her car keys. She grabbed the purse, kissed my cheek with the same enthusiasm she'd show a distant relative, and headed for the door. "I'm having brunch with the girls today, so I'll be late," she said without looking back. The girls. That would be her sister Vivian and her divorced friends Steph, Nora, and Candace. The same crew that had been filling her head with ideas about living her best life and not settling for less than she deserved. After she left, I sat at our kitchen table, surrounded by the remnants of the life we'd built together. Wedding photos on the refrigerator, her coffee mug in the sink with lipstick stains on the rim, the mortgage payment sitting unopened on the counter. 15 years. We'd been together since she was 23 and I was 27. Met at Frankie's bar downtown, the Lake Effect, when she was fresh out of college and I was already running my own garage. She used to love watching me work, said there was something sexy about a man who could build things with his hands. Now those same hands disgusted her. She flinched when I touched her, made excuses when I suggested we spend time together. Our conversations had dwindled to logistics: who was picking up groceries, when the electric bill was due, whether we needed to call the plumber about the leak in the basement. I tried to lose myself in work that morning, but my mind kept drifting to that recorder. What would I hear when I got it back? Did I really want to know? By noon, I couldn't stand it anymore. I drove to Rosetti's, the upscale restaurant where Rachel and her friends always had their girls' brunches. Sure enough, her Honda Civic was in the parking lot. Through the window, I could see them at their usual corner table. Vivian, Rachel's younger sister, was gesturing wildly with her hands, while the others leaned in close. Steph, the ringleader of their little group, had her perfectly manicured finger pointed at Rachel's chest like she was making some important point. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but Rachel looked upset. She kept shaking her head while Steph talked, then suddenly stood up and headed toward the restroom. This was my chance. I waited in my truck until she came out, then followed her home at a distance. She went straight upstairs to shower, leaving her purse on the kitchen counter again. The recorder was still there, warm from being in her purse all morning. My hands trembled as I connected it to my laptop in the basement workshop. What I heard destroyed me. "You need to set yourself free, Rach." That was Steph's voice, crystal clear through the tiny microphone. "Take off your ring. Liam's waiting for you to make a decision. Liam Barrett, who owned the new gym across town. I'd met him exactly once at a 4th of July barbecue last summer. Tall, tanned, the kind of guy who wore his hair perfectly styled even at outdoor parties. He'd shaken my hand with the grip of someone trying to prove something. I don't know, Rachel's voice replied. Eddie's not a bad guy, he just what? Bores you to tears? When's the last time he took you anywhere nice? When's the last time he made you feel special? It's not that simple, Steph. It absolutely is that simple. This was Nora chiming in. You're 38 years old. You don't have kids. You have a good job. What exactly are you waiting for? She's waiting for permission, Candace added with a laugh. Honey, you don't need anyone's permission to be happy. There was a long pause, then Rachel's voice again, quieter now. He's been asking questions about where I go, who I talk to. I think he suspects something. Then you need to be more careful, Vivian said. My own sister-in-law, the woman I'd helped move 3 times, whose car I'd fixed for free more times than I could count. Or you need to just end it with Eddie and stop sneaking around. Liam says he's ready to go public, Steph added. He wants to take you to the country club next weekend, as his date, not his dirty little secret. Rachel sighed. The country club? That's where everyone goes. People would see us. That's the point, Nora said. You can't live in limbo forever. Either you're married to Eddie or you're with Liam. Pick one. The recording went quiet for a moment. Then I heard the scrape of chairs and muffled goodbyes. But just before it ended, I caught Rachel's voice one more time. You're right. I can't keep doing this to myself or to Eddie. I sat in my basement workshop, surrounded by the tools and projects that had always been my refuge, and felt something break inside my chest. Not my heart. That had been cracking for months. Something deeper. Something that had to do with dignity and respect and the man I thought I was. Upstairs, I could hear Rachel moving around, getting ready for whatever came next in her day, probably texting Liam, making plans for their big public debut at the country club. I looked at my wedding ring, the simple gold band I'd worn for 15 years. It had cost me 2 weeks' payback when I was just starting out, but Rachel had loved it. Said she didn't need diamonds or fancy settings, just a symbol of our commitment to each other. Apparently, symbols didn't mean much anymore. My phone buzzed with a text message. For a wild moment, I thought it might be Rachel, maybe apologizing or explaining or giving me some hope that we could work through this. Instead, it was Vivian. Eddie, we need to talk. Meet me at your house in an hour. There's something you need to see. I stared at the message, my mind racing. Vivian had been at that brunch, had been encouraging Rachel to leave me for Liam. Why would she want to talk to me now unless she felt guilty? Unless she'd realized what she'd done to her sister's marriage and wanted to make amends. Or unless this was something else entirely. An hour later, Vivian's car pulled into my driveway. She got out looking like she'd been crying, her makeup smeared and her usually perfect hair disheveled. Eddie, she said as I opened the front door, I'm so sorry. I didn't know how bad it had gotten until today. What are you talking about? She pulled out her phone and showed me a text message. At the club with Elle, finally free. Don't wait up. The timestamp showed it had been sent 20 minutes ago. She left right after brunch, Vivian continued, tears streaming down her face. Steph and the others, they've been pushing her for weeks. I thought it was just talk, just fantasy. I didn't think she'd actually... I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Where's the country club? Eddie, don't. Please, let me handle this. Let me talk to her. But I was already grabbing my keys. Which country club, Vivian? She looked at me for a long moment, then her expression changed. The guilt and remorse faded, replaced by something harder. You know what? Fine. Lakeside Country Club out on Route 9, but Eddie? She pulled out her phone and started recording. Whatever happens next, I want it on video, for evidence. I stopped halfway to my truck. Evidence of what? Vivian smiled, and for the first time, I saw the family resemblance between her and Rachel. The same calculating look, the same cold ambition hiding behind pretty features. Evidence of what kind of man you really are when your world falls apart. The Lakeside Country Club sat on 30 acres of manicured lawn overlooking Miller's Lake, a monument to everything I'd never been able to give Rachel. Membership cost more than I made in 3 months, and the monthly dues alone would have covered our mortgage payment. I'd driven there in silence while Vivian live-streamed from the passenger seat, narrating our journey like some twisted reality show. We're about to confront my sister about her affair, she said into her phone's camera. Her husband just found out, and honestly, I think it's about time. Rachel's been living a lie for months. Turn that off, I said through gritted teeth. No way. This is going to be epic. My followers are eating this up. Vivian had always been the dramatic one, the sister who thrived on conflict and chaos. She worked as a social media manager for some local businesses, which basically meant she got paid to stir up drama online. I should have known she had an agenda. The country club parking lot was full of expensive cars, BMWs, Mercedes, a few Teslas. My beat-up Ford F-150 looked like it had wandered in from a different decade. There, Vivian pointed toward the pool area. Rachel's car is here, and that's Liam's Mustang. Through the fence surrounding the pool, I could see them. Rachel was wearing a sundress I'd never seen before, something white and flowing that made her look younger. She was sitting on a lounge chair while Liam rubbed sunscreen on her shoulders, both of them laughing at some private joke. My wife of 15 years was letting another man touch her in public, wearing clothes I hadn't paid for, at a place I could never afford to take her. Oh, this is perfect, Vivian whispered, still recording. Look at them. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. I pushed through the gate and walked toward them, my work boots loud on the concrete deck. A few other club members looked up from their poolside conversations, sensing drama. Rachel saw me first. The color drained from her face, and she quickly stood up, nearly knocking over her drink. Eddie, what are you doing here? Liam turned around with a confused expression that quickly shifted to annoyance. He was everything I wasn't. Tall, tan, perfectly groomed. His gym membership was written all over his body, from his sculpted arms to his flat stomach. I think the question is, what are you doing here, Rachel? My voice came out steadier than I felt. With him. Look, buddy, Liam said, standing up and puffing out his chest. I don't know what your problem is, but my problem is that you're touching my wife. Rachel stepped between us, her hands shaking. Eddie, please. Not here. Not like this. Then where? When? You've been avoiding me for months. When exactly were you planning to have this conversation? By now, we'd attracted the attention of everyone around the pool. Conversations had stopped, and people were openly staring. Vivian circled us with her phone, capturing every angle. You heard the girls at brunch? Liam said with a smirk. She's not your toy anymore, Eddie. She's free to make her own choices. The casual cruelty of it hit me like a punch to the gut. He knew about the brunch, he knew about the conversations, the planning, the systematic destruction of my marriage. This wasn't a spontaneous affair, it was a conspiracy. Free? I looked at Rachel, really looked at her. Is that what you are now? Free? She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Instead, she looked down at her left hand, where her wedding ring caught the afternoon sunlight. Take it off, I said quietly. What? The ring? If you're free, take it off. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. Eddie, don't do this. Not in front of everyone. You did this in front of everyone. You brought him here to the most public place in town and let him put his hands on you while you're still wearing my ring. So either take it off or admit you're still my wife and come home with me. Liam stepped forward, his jaw tight. She doesn't have to choose anything right now, and she sure as hell doesn't have to justify herself to you. Actually, I said, turning to face him fully, she does. See, we're married. That means something, even if it doesn't mean anything to you. It means you're holding her back, Liam shot back. When's the last time you took her somewhere like this? When's the last time you made her feel special instead of just another obligation? The words stung because they had some truth to them. I had gotten comfortable, had stopped trying as hard, but that didn't justify this. You want to know when I last made her feel special? I asked, my voice rising. Every morning when I got up at 6 a.m. to work on cars so she could have health insurance. Every time I fixed her sister's car for free, or helped her friends move, or covered the mortgage when she wanted to take that expensive vacation last year. Money isn't everything, Rachel said quietly. No, it's not. But it's something. And apparently it's the only thing that matters to you now. I reached for her left hand, and she didn't pull away. Her wedding ring slid off easily. Too easily, like she'd been practicing. There, I said, holding the ring up so everyone could see it. Now you're free. And then I flicked it into the pool. The small splash it made seemed impossibly loud in the sudden silence. Rachel gasped and took a step toward the water, but I caught her arm. Don't, I said. You made your choice. I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there in her expensive sundress, crying in front of the entire country club while Vivian captured every moment on video. Behind me, I heard Liam's voice. Forget about him, baby. You're better off without him. But I also heard something else. The sound of Rachel sobbing, deep and broken, like maybe she was realizing what she'd just lost. I made it to my truck before the shaking started. My hands were trembling so badly, I could barely get the key in the ignition. 15 years of marriage ended with a splash in a country club pool. Vivian climbed into the passenger seat, still recording. That was incredible, she said breathlessly. The views are through the roof. This is going to be everywhere by tonight. I stared at her, really seeing her for the first time. You planned this? What? This whole thing, the brunch, the recording, bringing me here? You set this up? Vivian's smile faltered. I was trying to help you see the truth. No, you were trying to create content. You used your sister's marriage as entertainment for your social media followers. Rachel made her own choices, Eddie. I just documented them. I started the engine and backed out of the parking space. Through the rearview mirror, I could see Rachel still standing by the pool, surrounded by curious onlookers and their whispered conversations. Where are we going? Vivian asked. I'm taking you home, and then I'm going to figure out what comes next. What do you mean? I looked at her, this woman who had helped destroy my marriage for internet views, and felt something cold settle in my chest. I mean, your sister isn't the only one who can be free, Vivian. I've spent 15 years being the good guy, the reliable guy, the guy who fixes everyone else's problems and keeps his mouth shut. But that guy just threw his wedding ring in a pool. Eddie, you're scaring me. Good, I said, pulling out onto Route 9. You should be scared, because the man who walked into that country club isn't the same one who's driving this truck. By the time I dropped Vivian off at her apartment, her live stream had been viewed over 10,000 times. The comments were brutal, some supporting me, others calling me controlling and abusive. But they were all talking about it, sharing it, making my private humiliation into public entertainment. I drove to Frankie's bar, The Lake Effect, and ordered a whiskey. It was only 4 in the afternoon, but I figured the circumstances called for an exception. Rough day? Frankie asked. He'd been my friend since high school, had been the best man at my wedding. If anyone would understand, it would be him. Rachel's having an affair. Frankie set down the glass he'd been cleaning and gave me his full attention. You sure? I just watched her choose him over me at the country club, in front of half the town. Jesus, Eddie, I'm sorry. I took a sip of whiskey and felt it burn all the way down. The worst part is, I think I saw it coming. I just didn't want to believe it. What are you going to do? I looked at my reflection in the mirror behind the bar. 42 years old, graying hair, lines around my eyes from squinting at engine parts in bad light. I looked tired. I looked defeated. But I didn't feel defeated. I felt something else entirely. I'm going to remind this town why you don't mess with Eddie Harlan. Frankie raised an eyebrow. What's that supposed to mean? It means Rachel and her boyfriend just declared war on my life, and they have no idea who they're dealing with. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Eddie, please, we need to talk. This doesn't have to be ugly. I showed the message to Frankie, who shook his head in disgust. 15 years, he said. And she thinks a text message is going to fix this? I typed back. You're right. It doesn't have to be ugly, but it's going to be. Then I turned off my phone and ordered another whiskey. Tomorrow, I would start planning. Tonight, I would mourn the man I used to be, because that man was gone and he wasn't coming back. I woke up the next morning on my couch, still wearing yesterday's clothes, with a headache that felt like someone was using my skull for hammer practice. The house was quiet, too quiet. No sound of Rachel getting ready for work, no coffee brewing in the kitchen, no morning routine that had defined our lives for 15 years, just silence and the smell of stale whiskey. My phone showed 17 missed calls from Rachel and 43 text messages. I deleted them all without reading them. Whatever she had to say, I wasn't ready to hear it. Instead, I went down to my workshop in the basement. This had always been my sanctuary. The place where I could think clearly, surrounded by tools that never lied or betrayed or chose someone else over me. I fired up my laptop and started researching. If Vivian could use social media as a weapon, so could I. It took me less than an hour to find Liam Barrett's entire digital life spread across Facebook, Instagram, and the website for his gym, Barrett's Body Works. The guy was an open book, posted his daily routines, his meal plans, his workout schedules, checked in at restaurants, tagged his location at the grocery store, even shared photos of his apartment complex. He had no sense of privacy or security, probably because he'd never had a reason to worry about someone wanting to hurt him. That was about to change. I also found Rachel's social media accounts, which she'd apparently forgotten I had access to. She'd been more careful than Liam, but not careful enough. There were subtle signs going back months, photos where she looked happier than she ever did at home, check-ins at places we'd never been together, comments from friends that made more sense now that I knew what was really going on. But the most interesting discovery was Vivian's live stream from yesterday. It had gone viral in our small town, with over 50,000 views and hundreds of comments. Some people were sympathetic to me, others thought I was an abusive husband who deserved to be cheated on. But everyone was talking about it. More importantly, everyone was talking about Rachel and Liam. Their affair was now public knowledge, which meant they'd have to deal with the social consequences. Rachel's job at the insurance company, Liam's gym membership that depended on his reputation as a trustworthy trainer. All of it was now under scrutiny. I was studying the comment threads when I heard footsteps upstairs. Heavy footsteps, too heavy to be Rachel. I grabbed a wrench from my workbench and headed up to investigate. Liam Barrett was standing in my kitchen, looking around like he owned the place. He'd let himself in through the back door, which I'd forgotten to lock after yesterday's drama. "What the hell are you doing in my house?" He turned around with that same smug expression he'd worn at the country club. "We need to talk, Eddie. Man to man. Get out. Not until we settle this like adults." He gestured toward the kitchen table. "Sit down. Let's figure out how to handle this situation without anyone getting hurt." I almost laughed. "Without anyone getting hurt? You've been screwing my wife for months, and now you're worried about someone getting hurt." "Look, I know you're upset." Upset? The wrench felt good in my hand, solid and real. "I'm not upset, Liam. I'm done. There's a difference. Rachel doesn't want to hurt you any more than necessary. She's willing to be generous in the divorce. The house, half the business, maybe even some alimony. But you need to stop making this harder than it has to be." Making it harder? I stepped closer to him, and for the first time, I saw uncertainty flicker across his face. "You mean like throwing her wedding ring in a pool in front of half the town? Like that kind of hard?" That was childish and cruel. Rachel spent all night crying because of that stunt. "Good." Liam's jaw tightened. "She's trying to be civilized about this. Don't make her change her mind." "Or what? You'll protect her? You'll be her knight in shining armor?" I laughed, and it came out harsh and bitter. "You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into, do you? I know I can give her things you never could. Respect, attention, a life worth living." That's when I snapped. I didn't touch him, though God knows I wanted to. Instead, I slammed my palm against his chest, hard enough to send him stumbling backward into the refrigerator. "Get out of my house," I said quietly. "Right now, before I do something we'll both regret." Liam straightened his shirt and tried to regain his composure, but I could see the fear in his eyes. He'd expected me to be the same broken man from yesterday, maybe even grateful that he was offering to make the divorce easy. He hadn't expected this. "This isn't over," he said, heading for the back door. "You're right," I replied. "It's not." After he left, I sat at my kitchen table and really looked at my house for the first time in years. Rachel had redecorated most of it, replacing my comfortable, practical furniture with trendy pieces that looked good but weren't meant to last. She'd painted over the wood paneling I'd installed myself, hung abstract art that meant nothing to me, turned our home into something that belonged in a magazine instead of a life. But the basement workshop was still mine, and that's where I was going to plan my next move. I spent the rest of the morning making phone calls. First to my lawyer, a guy named Tom Patterson, who'd handled my business contracts for years. He wasn't a divorce attorney, but he knew people who were. "Eddie, I heard about what happened at the country club," Tom said. "Half the town's talking about it. Are you okay?" "I'm fine. I need recommendations for the best divorce lawyer you know, someone who plays hardball." "You sure that's the route you want to go? Sometimes it's better to keep things amicable, especially when there are assets involved." "Tom, my wife has been cheating on me for months while I worked my A off to support her. Her boyfriend broke into my house this morning to threaten me. Amicable went out the window yesterday when she chose him over me in public." There was a pause. "Okay, I'll send you 3 names. These people don't mess around, but they're expensive. I'll find the money." My second call was to Frankie at the bar. "Eddie, thank God. I've been worried about you since last night. You left here pretty drunk. I need a favor, Frankie. You know everyone in this town, hear all the gossip. I need you to keep your ears open about Rachel and Liam. Anything you hear, where they're going, what they're planning, who they're talking to. I don't know, man. That sounds like stalking. It's intelligence gathering. They made this public when they decided to parade around the country club together. I'm just staying informed. Frankie sighed. All right, but be careful, Eddie. Revenge has a way of backfiring on people. This isn't revenge, Frankie. This is justice. My third call was to my insurance agent. If Rachel wanted a divorce, she was going to discover that being married to a small business owner had some disadvantages. Her health insurance came through my business. Her car insurance was bundled with mine. Her life insurance policy listed me as the beneficiary. All of that could change with a phone call. By noon, I'd made a dozen more calls. I canceled our joint credit cards, changed the passwords on all our shared accounts, and transferred half of our savings into a new account that only I could access. It was all perfectly legal. We were still married, and I had every right to protect our assets. Rachel's first mistake had been underestimating me. Her second mistake had been letting Liam think he could intimidate me in my own house. I was looking forward to showing them what their third mistake would cost them. My phone rang around 2 o'clock. It was Officer Tara Stokes, someone I'd known since high school who now worked for the local police. Eddie, I need to ask you some questions about an incident this morning. Can you come down to the station? What kind of incident? Liam Barrett filed a complaint saying you threatened him with a weapon in your home. I almost laughed. He broke into my house, Tara. I was defending my property. Just come in and we'll sort it out. Bring a lawyer if you want, but this is just a preliminary interview. An hour later, I was sitting in the police station explaining to Tara exactly what had happened. She took notes, asked a few follow-up questions, and then leaned back in her chair. Eddie, I've known you for 25 years. You're not a violent person. But this situation with Rachel has people talking, and not all of it's sympathetic to you. What do you mean? Some people are saying you're controlling, that maybe Rachel had good reasons for looking elsewhere. The way you humiliated her at the country club yesterday didn't help your image. So, I'm supposed to just accept that my wife's cheating on me? Smile and pretend everything's fine? I'm saying you need to be smart about this. Don't give them ammunition to use against you in court. I left the police station with a warning about maltreatment and a growing understanding of how this was going to play out. Rachel and Liam weren't just trying to end my marriage. They were trying to destroy my reputation, my business, my entire life. They wanted to paint me as the villain so they could be the heroes of their own love story. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated how far a desperate man would go to protect what was his. That evening, I sat in my workshop surrounded by the tools of my trade and started planning. Not revenge. That was too simple, too crude. What I had in mind was more sophisticated. I was going to give them exactly what they wanted, their freedom. But I was going to make sure they paid the full price for it. And by the time I was done, they'd understand that some victories cost more than defeat. 3 weeks later, Rachel moved out of our house and into Liam's apartment across town. She took half of everything, furniture, dishes, even the wedding photos, though I couldn't imagine what she planned to do with those. She left behind her key and a letter that I threw away without reading. The divorce papers arrived on a Thursday, delivered by a process server who looked embarrassed to be there. Rachel was asking for spousal support, half the value of my business, and the house. Her lawyer had clearly advised her to ask for everything and negotiate down from there. What she didn't know was that I'd been preparing for this moment since the day I threw her ring in the country club pool. The first part of my plan had been financial. I'd discovered that Rachel had been using our joint credit cards to pay for her dates with Liam, dinners at expensive restaurants, weekend trips to Portland, even the sundress she'd worn to the country club. Infidelity might not matter much in divorce court anymore, but financial infidelity was still a serious issue. I'd also learned that Liam's gym was struggling. He'd taken out a large loan to expand his facility, counting on membership growth that hadn't materialized. His business was leveraged to the hilt, which meant he couldn't actually afford the lifestyle he'd been showing off to Rachel. But the real opportunity came when Frankie called me with information about the town's annual harvest festival. "Eddie, you're not going to believe this," he said over the phone. "Rachel and Liam signed up to run a booth together. They're selling some kind of health food smoothies, trying to promote his gym." "What kind of booth?" "One of those fancy setups with banners and promotional materials. They're treating it like their public debut as a couple. Word is they're planning to announce their engagement." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Engagement? The divorce isn't even final. Yeah, well, apparently they're in love and can't wait to start their new life together. It's going to be the talk of the festival. The Harvest Festival was the biggest social event of the year in our town. Everyone attended: families, teenagers, elderly couples, local business owners. It was where reputations were made and destroyed, where gossip became legend. If Rachel and Liam wanted to make their relationship public, I was going to make sure they got more attention than they bargained for. I spent the next week preparing. The festival allowed anyone to rent a booth for a modest fee, so I signed up for a space directly across from theirs. My booth would be promoting my auto repair business, offering discount coupons and free safety inspections. But that was just the cover story. What I was really planning was much more sophisticated. Remember Vivian's live stream from the country club? It had given me an idea about the power of social media to shape public opinion. If she could make me look like a villain with one video, I could use the same tools to reveal the truth about Rachel and Liam. I'd been collecting evidence for weeks: screenshots of their social media posts, receipts from their dates charged to our joint credit cards, even photos of them together that had been posted by mutual friends. I'd also been recording my conversations with Rachel's lawyer, documenting her unreasonable demands and her attempts to paint me as an abusive husband. The festival would be the perfect place to present all of this evidence to the court of public opinion. Saturday morning dawned crisp and clear, perfect weather for the festival. I arrived early to set up my booth, arranging promotional materials and testing the small speaker system I'd brought. Rachel and Liam showed up an hour later, looking like something out of a fitness magazine. She was wearing tight yoga pants and a tank top that showed off the figure she'd been working on at his gym. He was in athletic shorts and a polo shirt with his gym's logo embroidered on the chest. They didn't notice me at first, too busy arranging their smoothie samples and hanging banners that proclaimed, "Barrett's Body Works, your new life starts here." The irony wasn't lost on me. "Eddie?" Rachel's voice was uncertain when she finally spotted me across the walkway. "What are you doing here?" "Running a business," I replied calmly. "Same as you." Liam stepped up beside her, his jaw tight. "This is maltreatment. We have a restraining order pending." "No, you don't. I checked with my lawyer this morning. You filed for one, but it was denied because you couldn't prove I'd actually threatened you." The festival officially opened at 10 a.m., and people began streaming through the booths. I handed out coupons and chatted with customers, playing the role of the hardworking local businessmen trying to drum up trade. But I was also watching Rachel and Liam, timing their routines, waiting for the perfect moment. It came at noon, when the festival reached its peak attendance. The high school marching band had just finished performing, and people were milling around looking for food and entertainment. That's when I activated the speaker system. "Ladies and gentlemen," my voice carried across the festival grounds, amplified by the small but powerful speakers I'd positioned around my booth. "I'd like to share a story with you about love, betrayal, and the true cost of following your dreams." Heads turned in my direction. Rachel and Liam looked up from their smoothie station with expressions of growing horror. 3 weeks ago, my wife of 15 years decided she wanted a new life. That's her right, of course. People fall out of love, grow apart, want different things. But what she did next is a lesson for everyone here about the importance of honesty and integrity. I pulled out a stack of papers, credit card statements, receipts, printed emails. These documents show how my wife used our joint credit cards to finance her affair with her new boyfriend. Expensive dinners, weekend getaways, even the clothes she wore when I caught them together at the country club. She spent over $8,000 of our money to cheat on me. A crowd was gathering now, drawn by the drama and the promise of scandal. I could see phones coming out, people starting to record. Rachel tried to approach my booth, but the crowd was too thick. "Eddie, stop this!" she shouted. "You're making a fool of yourself!" "Am I?" I held up my phone, which was connected to the speaker system. "Let me play you a recording from 3 weeks ago when my wife and her friends discussed the best way to destroy my life." The recording from the brunch played clearly through the speakers. Steph's voice encouraging Rachel to leave me, Vivian plotting to document my humiliation, Rachel admitting she'd been lying to me for months. The crowd was silent now, hanging on every word. When the recording ended, I could hear murmurs of disgust and disapproval. "But wait, there's more," I continued, channeling every infomercial I'd ever seen. "Not only did my wife cheat on me with your money, she's now demanding spousal support. half my business, and our house in the divorce. She wants to be rewarded for her betrayal. Liam finally pushed through the crowd, his face red with anger. Turn that off right now, or I'll... You'll what? I asked calmly. Call the police? I'm on public property expressing my First Amendment rights. Everything I've said is true and documented. You're humiliating her. No, I'm educating people. See, you and Rachel have been telling everyone what a terrible husband I was, how I didn't appreciate her, how she deserved better. But you forgot to mention that she never actually asked for better. She just went behind my back and took it. The crowd was growing larger, and I could see festival organizers pushing through, trying to figure out what was happening. But I wasn't done yet. Now, I want everyone here to take a good look at this couple, I said, gesturing toward Rachel and Liam. They're planning to announce their engagement today, even though my divorce isn't final. They're so in love that they can't wait to start their new life together. I paused for effect, then smiled. What they don't know is that Liam's gym is 3 months behind on its loan payments. His business is failing, which means he can't actually afford the lifestyle he's been promising my wife. In fact, I'd bet that by Christmas, he'll be looking for someone else to support him. Liam lunged toward me, but several men in the crowd held him back. You son of a witch! You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? I pulled out another set of papers. These are public records from the county clerk's office. Business loans, tax liens, bankruptcy filings. It's all here, Liam. Your financial house of cards is about to collapse. Rachel was crying now, her carefully applied makeup running down her cheeks. The festival crowd was staring at her with a mixture of pity and disgust, their phones capturing every moment of her breakdown. Please, she said, her voice barely audible over the murmur of the crowd. Eddie, please stop this. I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time since the country club. She looked smaller somehow, diminished by the weight of her choices and their consequences. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Then I remembered the recording of her laughing with her friends about what a fool I was, and the feeling passed. You're right, Rachel. This is enough. I turned off the speaker system and started packing up my materials. I think everyone here has heard what they need to hear. The crowd began to disperse, but slowly, people reluctant to leave the scene of such spectacular drama. I could hear fragments of conversation as they walked away. Can you believe she spent $8,000 cheating on him? I always thought there was something off about that Liam guy. Poor Eddie, 15 years, and she throws it away for a guy who can't even pay his bills. As I finished packing up my booth, Officer Tara Stokes appeared at my elbow. Eddie, we need to talk. Is there a problem, officer? You just caused a public disturbance. Rachel's talking about filing charges for maltreatment and defamation. I handed her a copy of all the documents I'd referenced in my presentation. Everything I said was true and provable. That's not defamation, that's disclosure. Tara flipped through the papers, her expression growing more serious. Jesus, Eddie, she really did all this? Every bit of it, and now she wants me to pay her alimony for the privilege of being betrayed. This is a mess, Tara said, shaking her head. But you can't keep doing this. Next time she might have grounds for a restraining order. There won't be a next time, I said, shouldering my bag. I think I've made my point. As I walked away from the festival, I could see Rachel and Liam frantically packing up their smoothie booth, trying to escape the stares and whispered comments of their former customers. Their grand public debut had become a public humiliation, and their engagement announcement had been overshadowed by the revelation of their financial problems and moral failures. But this was just the beginning. I'd won the battle for public opinion, but the war was far from over. Rachel and Liam had destroyed my marriage and tried to destroy my reputation. Now it was time to show them what real destruction looked like, and I was just getting started. The festival had been a tactical victory, but it came with consequences. By Monday morning, the video of my speech had been shared across every social media platform in town. Some people called me a hero for exposing Rachel and Liam's lies. Others said I was a bitter ex-husband who couldn't let go. But the one opinion that mattered came from Judge Patricia Morrison, who was presiding over our divorce case. Mr. Harlan, she said during our emergency hearing that Tuesday, while I understand your frustration with your wife's behavior, public humiliation is not an acceptable form of legal remedy. Rachel sat at the plaintiff's table with her lawyer, looking like she'd aged 5 years in 3 days. The festival video had cost her more than just embarrassment. Her boss at the insurance company had seen it and placed her on administrative leave pending an investigation into her use of company time and resources for personal matters. Your Honor, my lawyer, Janet Reeves, stood up to address the court. My client was exercising his First Amendment rights to correct false statements about his character. Everything he said was factually accurate and supported by documentary evidence. That may be true, but it was also calculated to cause maximum embarrassment to the plaintiff. Mr. Harlan, you're walking a very fine line here. Any further public displays like that festival incident, and I'll hold you in contempt of court. I nodded respectfully, but inside I was smiling. The judge's warning told me everything I needed to know. I couldn't make any more public speeches, but she hadn't restricted my other activities. After the hearing, Rachel approached me in the courthouse parking lot. Eddie, please, we need to talk, privately. She looked terrible. Her hair was unwashed, her clothes wrinkled, and there were dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't hide. I think we've said everything we need to say to each other. No, we haven't. What you did at the festival, it destroyed everything. My job, my reputation, my relationship with Liam. Are you happy now? I studied her face, looking for some sign of the woman I'd fallen in love with 20 years ago. All I saw was someone who'd made bad choices and was finally facing the consequences. Your relationship with Liam is over? She nodded, tears starting to flow again. He left town yesterday, said he couldn't handle the pressure, the gossip, the damage to his business. He just packed up and disappeared. And you're surprised by this. You cheated on a man who loved you for 15 years. And you're shocked that a guy you've known for 6 months abandoned you when things got difficult? I made a mistake, Eddie, a terrible mistake. But I'm paying for it now. We're both paying for it. No, Rachel, you made a choice. You chose him over me. Excitement over stability, fantasy over reality. And when it all fell apart, you want to blame me for showing people who you really are. She grabbed my arm, her grip desperate. It doesn't have to be this way. We could start over, try again. I know I hurt you, but we had 15 good years together. Doesn't that count for something? For a moment, just a moment, I felt the old pull, the memory of who we used to be, what we used to mean to each other. But then I remembered the recording from the brunch, her laughter while discussing what a fool I was, and the feeling passed. Those 15 years ended the day you decided I wasn't enough for you. You can't unmake that choice, Rachel, and neither can I. I got in my truck and drove away, leaving her standing in the parking lot crying. In my rearview mirror, I watched her get smaller and smaller until she disappeared entirely. That night, Frankie called with an update. Eddie, you need to know what's happening. Rachel's been staying at the Lakeside Motel since Liam left. She can't afford her own place without his income, and she's too embarrassed to ask her family for help. The Lakeside Motel was the kind of place people stayed when they had nowhere else to go. Weekly rates, thin walls, and a parking lot full of broken dreams. How do you know all this? Her sister Vivian was in here tonight, drunk off her A and feeling guilty. Apparently Rachel's been calling her crying every night, begging for money. Vivian's starting to realize that her little social media stunt helped destroy her sister's life. Good. Maybe she'll think twice before she live-streams someone else's marriage falling apart. There's more, Eddie. Rachel's been trying to contact Liam, but he's not answering her calls. Word is he's already moved on to someone else, some woman he met in Portland. I felt a grim satisfaction at that news. Rachel had thrown away a 15-year marriage for a man who'd abandoned her at the first sign of trouble. It was poetic justice. But it wasn't enough. Over the next week, I watched from a distance as Rachel's life continued to unravel. She'd been fired from her job after the insurance company discovered she'd been using company computers to communicate with Liam during work hours. Her savings were nearly gone, depleted by months of expensive dates and the legal fees for our divorce. She was learning what I'd known all along, that real life wasn't a romantic fantasy, and that choices had consequences. But she still had one card left to play. The divorce settlement. If Judge Morrison awarded her spousal support and half my business, she could rebuild her life on the ruins of mine. That's when I decided it was time for the final gambit. I called Rachel's motel room on a Thursday night. Eddie? Her voice was hopeful, desperate. We need to talk. One last time before the final divorce hearing. Yes, please. I've been hoping you'd call. Maybe we can work something out, avoid going back to court. Meet me at the Lakeside Motel tomorrow night, room 237. I'll get us a neutral space where we can have an honest conversation about what comes next. You'll really consider trying again? Working things out? I let her hope hang in the air for a moment before answering. I'll consider what's best for both of us. The next evening, I arrived at the motel early and set up my equipment. Not weapons or recording devices, something much more sophisticated. I'd spent weeks learning about social media, studying how Vivian had used live streaming to destroy my reputation. Now I was going to use the same tools to reveal the final truth about Rachel and our marriage. Hidden in the room were 3 small cameras positioned to capture every angle. The audio was being fed to a transmitter that would broadcast our conversation to anyone who tuned in to the frequency, including Frankie, who was waiting at his bar with a room full of curious townspeople. Rachel arrived at 8 o'clock, looking nervous but hopeful. She'd made an effort with her appearance: clean clothes, styled hair, makeup to cover the damage that stress had done to her face. "Thank you for doing this," she said as she sat down on the motel room's single chair. "I know I don't deserve another chance, but—" "Stop," I said quietly. "Before we go any further, I need you to tell me the truth. All of it. When did the affair with Liam really start?" She looked down at her hands. "Eddie, does it matter? It's over now. He's gone and I'm here with you." "It matters to me." "When?" "About 8 months ago. We met at the gym, and at first it was just friendly conversation. But then what? Then I started feeling things I hadn't felt in years. Excitement, passion, the feeling that someone really saw me and wanted me." "And you never thought about talking to me? About working on our marriage before you decided to end it?" Rachel's composure began to crack. What was I supposed to say? That I was bored? That I felt like we were just roommates going through the motions? That I wanted more than just paying bills and watching TV every night? Yes, that's exactly what you were supposed to say. That's what married people do. They talk to each other. Would it have made a difference? Would you have changed? I considered the question seriously. Maybe, maybe not. But you didn't give me the chance to try. I'm giving you that chance now. No, Rachel, you're not. You're here because Liam left you, because you lost your job, because you're facing the consequences of your choices. If he was still around, if your life had worked out the way you planned, would you be in this room with me right now? She didn't answer, which was an answer in itself. "I want you to listen to something," I said, pulling out my phone. "This is a recording from your brunch with the girls the day before I caught you at the country club." I played the audio of her laughing with her friends about what a fool I was, discussing the best way to leave me, planning her new life with Liam. When it finished, she was crying again. "That's who you really are, Rachel. Not the woman sitting here asking for forgiveness, but the woman on that recording. The woman who spent months lying to my face while planning to destroy my life. People say things they don't mean when they're with friends. You know that." "Do they?" "Because everything you said in that recording you followed through on. You left me. You tried to take half my business. You painted me as an abusive husband to justify your betrayal." I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the parking lot where a few curious townspeople had gathered, drawn by word that something was happening in room 237. "Here's what's going to happen, Rachel. You're going to withdraw your request for spousal support and your claim on my business. You're going to accept a simple, no-fault divorce with an equal division of our actual marital assets. The house, the cars, the savings accounts." "I can't do that. I don't have a job. I don't have anywhere to live. I need that support to get back on my feet." "Then you should have thought about that before you decided to cheat on me." "Eddie, please, I'm begging you. Don't leave me with nothing." I turned back to face her, and she must have seen something in my expression that frightened her, because she shrank back in her chair. "You're not leaving with nothing, Rachel. You're leaving with exactly what you brought to this marriage. Yourself. Everything else we built together. And when you decided I wasn't worth staying faithful to, you forfeited your right to take it with you. That's not fair. Fair?" I laughed, and it came out cold and bitter. "You want to talk about fair? Let me tell you what would be fair. Fair would be me getting back the $8,000 you spent on your affair. Fair would be you paying me back for all the times I fixed your sister's car, helped your friends move, covered expenses so you could take vacations with people who were helping you plan to leave me." I sat back down across from her, close enough that she couldn't avoid looking at me. "But I'm not asking for any of that. I'm asking for my freedom, and I'm offering you yours. Take it, Rachel, because it's the best deal you're going to get." She was quiet for a long moment, processing what I'd said. Then she looked up at me with an expression I'd never seen before, pure hatred. You fool, you planned this whole thing, didn't you? The festival, the humiliation, driving Liam away. You orchestrated all of it. I didn't drive Liam away. He left because he realized you weren't worth the trouble, just like I did. I loved him. No, you didn't. You loved the idea of him, the fantasy of a different life. But when reality set in, when things got difficult, he ran. And now you're trying to run back to me because I'm the safe choice, the reliable choice, the man who will take care of you no matter how badly you treat him. I leaned forward, my voice dropping to barely above a whisper. But that man is gone, Rachel. You eliminated him the day you chose someone else over our marriage. What's left is someone who's learned not to confuse love with weakness. She stared at me for a long moment, then slowly reached into her purse and pulled out a pen. Where are the papers? I handed her the divorce settlement documents that my lawyer had prepared. A clean split, no spousal support, no claims on my business. She signed them with shaking hands, then threw the pen at me. I hope you're happy, Eddie. I hope destroying my life was worth it. I didn't destroy your life, Rachel. You did that all by yourself. I just made sure you couldn't destroy mine too. She stood up to leave, then turned back one more time. You know what the saddest part is? We could have been happy together if you'd just tried a little harder. If you'd paid attention to what I needed instead of just assuming I'd always be there. Maybe, I said. But we'll never know now, will we? After she left, I sat in that motel room for another hour, listening to the sounds of the night through the thin walls. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear music from Frankie's bar, where people were probably discussing the latest chapter in the Eddie and Rachel saga. Tomorrow, the divorce would be final. Rachel would take her half of our savings and disappear, probably to another town where no one knew her story. I would keep the house, the business, and the life we'd built together. But tonight, for the first time in months, I felt something I'd almost forgotten. Peace. The war was over, and I had won. Not because I'd destroyed Rachel. She'd done that herself. But because I'd refused to let her destroy me. I packed up my equipment and headed home to the house that was finally completely mine. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I thought the Eddie and Rachel saga was over. She'd left town as I predicted, moving to Portland where she found work as a temp at various insurance offices. The house was quiet. My business was thriving, and I'd even started dating again. Nothing serious, just dinner with a nice woman named Carol who owned the flower shop downtown. Life was good. Maybe not exciting, but stable and peaceful in a way I'd forgotten was possible. Then Vivian showed up at my garage on a rainy Tuesday morning in March. Eddie, we need to talk. I looked up from the engine I was rebuilding, a 1967 Mustang that belonged to Doc Peterson, one of my regular customers. Vivian looked terrible, like she'd been crying for days. If this is about Rachel, I'm not interested. It's not about Rachel. Not directly. It's about what I did to both of you. I set down my wrench and gave her my full attention. What are you talking about? The live stream, the festival, all of it. I've been carrying this guilt for months, and I can't stand it anymore. She pulled out her phone and showed me a video I'd never seen before, footage from the day at the country club, but from a different angle than the live stream that had gone viral. I edited the original video, she said quietly. Cut out parts that made Rachel look sympathetic, enhanced the parts that made her look cruel. I manipulated the whole thing to create maximum drama for my followers. I stared at the screen, watching the unedited version of my marriage's final moments. In this version, Rachel looked less calculating and more confused, more hurt than vindictive. She'd tried to explain, tried to apologize, but I'd been too angry to listen. Why are you showing me this? Because Rachel's in the hospital, Eddie. She tried to eliminate herself last week. The wrench slipped from my hand and clattered to the garage floor. What? She's been struggling since she moved to Portland. Can't keep a job, can't afford her apartment, can't escape the reputation that follows her everywhere thanks to social media. Last Tuesday, her landlord found her unconscious in her bathroom. Pills. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Is she... She's alive, but barely. And she's been asking for you. I sat down heavily on my work stool, trying to process what Vivian had just told me. Rachel had tried to eliminate herself. The woman I'd spent 15 years loving, then 2 years destroying, had wanted to die. I don't understand. Why are you telling me this? What do you want me to do? I want you to visit her to see what your revenge really cost. My revenge? She's the one who cheated, who lied, who tried to take everything I'd worked for. And you're the one who made sure she'd never recover from it. The festival, the public humiliation, the social media campaign that followed her to Portland. You didn't just divorce her, Eddie. You destroyed her. I stood up, anger flashing through me. I didn't force her to have an affair. I didn't make her lie to me for months. I didn't tell her to spend our money on dates with another man. No, but you made sure everyone in 2 counties knew about it. You turned her mistakes into public entertainment, and now she's lying in a hospital bed because she can't live with the shame. Vivian stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. I helped you do it, Eddie. I gave you the weapons you used to destroy her, and I've been living with that guilt every day since she left town. So what do you want? Forgiveness? Absolution? I want you to see her, to understand what we did, and then I want you to decide if it was worth it. I turned away from her, staring at the half-rebuilt engine on my workbench. For months, I'd told myself that Rachel had gotten what she deserved, that her suffering was justice for what she'd done to our marriage. But attempted self-destruction? That was something else entirely. Where is she? Portland General Hospital, room 314. But Eddie, she doesn't look good. The doctors say she's been struggling with depression for months. She's lost weight, looks older. This whole thing broke something inside her. After Vivian left, I couldn't concentrate on work. I kept thinking about Rachel in that hospital bed, alone and broken, wanting to die rather than live with the consequences of her choices, or the consequences of my choices. That evening, I called Frankie and told him what Vivian had said. Jesus, Eddie. Self-destruction? I never thought it would go that far. Neither did I. I wanted her to suffer, to understand what she'd done to me, but I didn't want her to die. So what are you going to do? I don't know. Part of me says she made her bed and now she has to lie in it. But part of me wonders if I went too far. You want my honest opinion? Always. I think you both went too far. She betrayed your marriage, and you destroyed her life. Maybe it's time to call it even. The next morning, I drove to Portland. It was a 2-hour trip that gave me plenty of time to think about what I was going to say to Rachel, what I hoped to accomplish by seeing her. Portland General Hospital was a maze of corridors and elevators, filled with the antiseptic smell of institutional cleaning supplies and the quiet desperation of people facing medical crises. Room 314 was in the psychiatric wing, behind locked doors that required special permission to enter. The nurse who escorted me was kind but firm about the rules. She's been asking for you for days, she said as we walked down the hallway. But I have to warn you, she's not the person you remember. Depression and medication have changed her significantly. She opened the door to reveal a small, sterile room with a single bed, a chair, and a window that looked out on the parking lot. Rachel was sitting up in bed, staring at nothing. She'd lost at least 30 pounds since I'd last seen her. Her hair was stringy and unwashed, her skin pale and drawn. She looked like a ghost of the woman I'd married. Rachel? She turned toward me, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of the person she used to be. Eddie, you came. Vivian told me what happened. I wanted to see if you were okay. She laughed, but it came out bitter and broken. Do I look okay to you? I sat down in the chair beside her bed, studying her face. The woman who had once been beautiful enough to turn heads was gone, replaced by someone who looked decades older than her 39 years. Why did you do it, Rachel? Why did you try to eliminate myself? Because I couldn't stand living with what I'd become, what we'd both become. She turned to look out the window, her voice flat and emotionless. Do you know what it's like to be famous for all the wrong reasons? To have strangers recognize you as the cheating wife from the viral video? To lose job after job because employers Google your name and find nothing but scandal? I didn't know it had followed you to Portland. It followed me everywhere. Your festival speech, Vivian's live streams, the social media posts, they're permanent, Eddie, forever. I can never escape what I did or what you did to me because of it. I felt something shift inside me, a crack in the wall of anger I'd built around my heart. I never meant for it to go this far. Didn't you? She turned back to face me, and I saw tears in her eyes. You planned every step of it. The festival, the public humiliation, the financial warfare. You wanted to destroy me, and you succeeded. I wanted justice. No, you wanted revenge, and you got it. I lost everything, my job, my reputation, my relationship with my family, my will to live. Are you satisfied now? I looked at this broken woman in the hospital bed and tried to find some sense of satisfaction, some feeling that justice had been served. Instead, all I felt was emptiness. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. "I'm sorry it came to this." "Are you? Or are you just sorry that I survived?" The question hit me like a physical blow. "Rachel, I never wanted you to die. I was angry. I wanted you to understand what you'd done to me, but I never wanted this." "Then why didn't you stop? After the festival, after Liam left, after I lost my job, why did you keep pushing?" I thought about it, really thought about it, for the first time since our marriage had ended. Because I was hurt. Because I felt betrayed and humiliated and powerless. Because destroying you was the only way I could feel strong again. She nodded slowly. "At least you're honest about it." We sat in silence for several minutes. Two people who had once loved each other, now reduced to this: a hospital room, a psychiatric ward, the wreckage of two lives. "What happens now?" I asked finally. "I don't know. The doctors say I need to stay here for at least another month. After that, maybe I'll try to start over somewhere else. Change my name, change my appearance, become someone new." "Or you could come home?" She stared at me in surprise. "What?" "Come back to town. Not to me, not to our marriage, but to the place where you grew up. Face the gossip and the judgment, but also find the people who remember who you were before all this happened." "I can't. Everyone hates me there." "Not everyone. And the ones who matter will forgive you, given time." Rachel was quiet for a long moment, considering what I'd said. "Why would you want me to come back, after everything that's happened between us?" I thought about the question, searching for an honest answer. "Because I loved you once. Because despite everything you did, everything I did, we were good together for 15 years. Because maybe it's time for both of us to stop being defined by our worst moments. And if I came back, what then? Then we'd both try to move forward, separately, but in the same place. Maybe eventually we could even be friends again." She smiled for the first time since I'd entered the room. A small, fragile smile, but real. "I'd like that. Not now, not soon, but someday. I'd like to remember why we fell in love in the first place instead of just remembering how it ended." I stood up to leave, then turned back one more time. "Rachel, for what it's worth, I forgive you. For the affair, for the lies, for all of it. I hope someday you can forgive me too." "I already have, Eddie. I had to, or the anger would have eliminated me." I left the hospital feeling lighter than I had in years. The war between Rachel and me was finally over, not because one of us had won, but because we'd both lost enough to understand the true cost of our battle. 6 weeks later, Rachel returned to our hometown. She found a small apartment above the bakery downtown and took a part-time job at the library. People stared at first, whispered when she walked by, but gradually the novelty wore off and she became just another resident again. We saw each other occasionally, at the grocery store, at town events, once at Frankie's bar where she was having dinner alone. We nodded politely, sometimes exchanged a few words, but kept our distance. It wasn't friendship yet, but it wasn't hatred either. It was something new, something neither of us had expected. Peace. 1 year after her self-destruction attempt, Rachel sent me a card on what would have been our 17th wedding anniversary. Inside, she'd written, "Thank you for helping me remember that some things are worth surviving." I kept that card in my workshop, next to the tools I used to fix broken things. It reminded me that sometimes the most important repairs are the ones you make to people's lives, including your own. Rachel and I would never be together again, but we'd found something better than love or revenge. We'd found forgiveness. And in a small town where everyone knows everyone else's business, that was its own kind of victory.